Once upon a time, a monk named Marksman had what he believed to be a prophetic, wonderful dream about finally ridding himself of his ego once and for all. Inspired by this event, he decided to help the other monks, not just by recounting his dream, but by demonstrating it, hoping it would have a greater effect and guide at least a few lost souls onto the right path. Marksman returned to the monastery at noon. As he approached, others began to ask where he had been all morning. But he, clasping his hands behind his back, smiling proudly and saying nothing, slowly strolled across the courtyard, making a pause and waiting until he finally attracted their attention. He said, "Listen to me, my friends. Today I had an awakening. So, as an infinite source of compassion for all living beings, I cannot help but share it with you, to tell you about my experience and free you from the shackles of duality. Hear my tale." Some monks exchanged silent glances, but no one said anything. Everyone prepared to listen. It is worth noting that all this time, Marksman had a bag behind his back, and now he pulled it out, opened it, and took out a huge inflated balloon. The monks buzzed slightly but quickly quieted down. "What is that for?" someone shouted. "Patience," was the reply. "Look," Marksman continued, "this balloon is like my ego, so inflated, important, arrogant, and if you prick it, it will start to deflate immediately." Everyone laughed, appreciating the joke. "I will continue with your permission. So, look at it, my ego. I have discovered it. Now all that remains is to destroy it. But I would like to caution you here. Destroying it is not as simple as it might seem. Personal approach is needed here. Everyone must find that in which they are a master, that which they do best, and use that to annihilate this enemy. Here you will need to conduct self-examination and find out what this is for each of you. And in this matter, I cannot help you." Marksman paused again, scanning the faces of the monks. They responded with nods, some approvingly, some in agreement. "So," the young monk continued, "everyone knows that I am a master of the bow and arrow, hence my nickname. It is them I used to finally subdue my ego, and now I intend to demonstrate it to you, so this speech is better imprinted in your bald heads. Watch and heed me." And with these words, Marksman, raising the balloon above his head with an outstretched arm, let it go so it floated slowly and steadily upwards. Everyone noticed that the monk had attached a piece of paper to the balloon, on which the word ego was scrawled. For a few seconds, everyone watched the balloon. No one moved. Then their gazes gradually turned to Marksman. But he was still watching the balloon rise. "What happens next?" came a voice from the crowd. The monk came to his senses, reached into the bag and pulled out a bow and arrows. Showing them to everyone adequately, he clasped his hands behind his back, holding the weapons, and began to walk slowly back and forth as if nothing had happened. Silence fell again. No one took their eyes off him. "Why aren't you shooting?" One very young monk couldn't hold back. "I am waiting for the right moment. Remember, I am a master of my craft and know better than anyone when that moment will come." After walking around a bit more, the monk looked up. The balloon was already quite high. "The time has come," said Marksman. Attaching the arrow and pulling the string. It should be noted for the sake of completeness that at this time the balloon was blocking the sun's disk, so the shooter's eyes were in the shade. But just as he was about to shoot and began to release his fingers, the balloon rose slightly above the sun, and a sunbeam hit the monk directly in the eyes, so he squinted and released the string. And, as expected, the arrow flew slightly off target. "Damn it!" The monk couldn't hold back. How could this happen? No one even thought of laughing. Marksman shielded his eyes with his hand, peering up. Then he looked around at the gathered monks. "Give me your hat, quickly, please." He was given a hat. He made a circle, walking some distance since the sun was directly overhead, so that it ended up slightly behind him. Now, thanks to the hat, he could hit the balloon without worrying about the yellow god's antics. Saying nothing, he pulled the string, aimed, and released the arrow. It seemed the arrow was flying straight to the target. But suddenly, somewhere up high, a gust of wind blew, and the arrow, again slightly off course, missed the target. Damn, Damn! Damn! The monk was almost crying. Suddenly, he let out a fierce, startling scream, whether from failure or to encourage himself before the next shot. No one knew. Marksman raised his bow again, attached the arrow, and pulled the string. He froze, apparently gathering his thoughts. "Inner peace," he whispered, so only those closest and who hadn't run away in fright from his scream could hear him. "Inner peace is all I need now," the monk repeated and released the arrow after a couple of seconds. Everyone gasped quietly. The arrow missed the balloon by mere centimeters. Marksman plopped to the ground and stared at it blankly. "Don't worry," someone tried to console him. "If you had shot a couple of seconds earlier, you would have hit it for sure." Marksman covered his face with his hands. It seemed he was about to cry. "Hey, I know what to do," shouted the senior monk. "Take a gun. You can still hit it." Marksman looked at him and lowered his head again, lower than before. "No," he mumbled. "I am a master of the bow and arrow. How can I? With a gun? No." Meanwhile, all the monks crowded around him in a tight circle, each trying to comfort him in some way, so no one noticed when the abbot entered the circle. "Why are you crying?" asked the abbot. The monk raised his head, greeted the abbot, and, wiping his tears, began to mumble his story. The abbot listened calmly, smiled, and nodded. "Listen," he said, "trying to get rid of thoughts about the ego only makes them stronger. Let them go, loosen your grip. Just don't pay attention to them, and they will dissolve by themselves as if they never existed. Then one day, you may even want to see them again, feel them, find them, but there will be no trace of them." The abbot raised his head as if looking for something up high. Everyone followed his example. "Look, Marksman, your ego has disappeared," shouted a young monk. The balloon was no longer visible. A deep moment of inner silence came. In this meditation, all the monks without exception realized their true nature as it is. This topic delves into the importance of letting go of things, thoughts, and feelings that hold us back. The story of the monk named Marksman vividly illustrates how trying to control and combat one's ego can worsen the situation. It is crucial to learn to let go and not dwell on what disrupts our inner peace.